A few months ago, Jumper released the T-14, arguably the perfectly sized radar in the FPV hobby. And this thing is pretty impressive with a 1-watt module, a bright OLED display, and it's really good on batteries. But things changed pretty quickly in the FPV hobby, and Jumper is back again with a new radio, this time in the T-15. So let's open this up and see what's improved. Okay, so here it is, the Jumper T-15. This thing looks very similar to the actual T-14. Now, this one here looks to be a little bit more fun and interesting with a color display here and a series of colors here you can choose to make your life a little bit more fun. So that's pretty cool that they give you a lot more options here to make this more customizable to your liking. So let's open this up and see what we have inside. Right there. All right, so the first thing I see here is a Jumper case, which is pretty cool. Jumper has been including a nice case on their last couple of radios, and that's a pretty cool sign because some of the other manufacturers don't include that. This one here is a pretty nice hard case, and it does have a handle on here so you can travel with this thing wherever you go. So let's unzip this and see how it looks. Oh, pretty nice right here. Ooh, some pretty cool gimbal protectors. All right, so on the top here you have your USB-C cable here. This will let you charge the actual batteries in your charger, as well interfacing with the computer to update the firmware and to use this as a SIM controller. Besides that, you have some springs to adjust the tension on your gimbals. A nice screen protector. I don't think the T-14 had that, but here's the screen protector. Now this is a touchscreen. We'll get to that a little bit later, but it's cool that we have an extra screen protector on here. And your usual lanyard. This is a larger radar compared to some of the smaller game style controllers, and you might need that harness quality control. So this thing said it was checked and passed. So we'll see about that once we power this up. Besides that, we have the radio right here, and it's cool to see that they keep making some alterations with their radios. This one does have a gimbal protector. Pretty nice, looks like a silicone plastic. Now the other one in the T-14 just had some foam insert that you couldn't reuse, but this one has more features on here. It keeps the stick centered, as well as your switches and your pods. So that's a nice touch. So if you drop this thing or pack it, if you're not going to use a case, you throw it into your backpack, then you could break a switch. Not anymore. This is pretty nice. Let's take this off. And here you are, the T-15. This thing looks really nice. Now, I have the, I guess it looks like gray or black on here. That's checked off. This is more of the blue color that we've seen on the T-14 and the T-20. In fact, I have the T-14 right here, and the color looks very similar, almost identical. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the T-15. And at first glance, this thing looks very similar to the T-14, but it is a little bit different, especially the front plate here. This is a redesigned front plate. As you can see, we have a bigger display on here. That's the most obvious thing. But you also have some more buttons on here, a relocation of the trim switches, as well as 2 additional buttons here, which is pretty cool. And we talk about that once we power this thing up. Now, the main star of the show here is this 3.5 color touchscreen display here. This thing is pretty cool. Hopefully this thing is bright enough for outdoors operations, but now this gives us the ability to navigate the menus via our fingers, via touch. Now, this is not new by any means, but this is a first in the segment, which is pretty impressive. We know other larger radios like the T-18, the T-16, and TX-16S all have color displays. But in the smaller form factor like the TBS Mambo or the Boxer, even the TX-12, this form factor, this size, they all have an LCD display. So to have a color display on here is pretty impressive. Now we'll see how that affects the battery life on this radio. Hopefully it doesn't drain it too much, but we'll see once we test this. Now, I've done a full review on the T-14, which is very similar to the T-15 on here. So if you want an in-depth review of all these switches and what they do, I'll leave that video linked right here so you can take a look at it. Now, starting from the bottom here, we have the screen, which takes up most of the real estate on this. Now, this is pretty impressive, especially since we had a smaller screen on the T-14. So a lot of guys said we can put a bigger screen on here, and that's exactly what they did. So that's pretty impressive. Hopefully this thing is bright. There's no information on how bright it is, but hopefully we can see it outdoors, and we'll do that in a few moments here and see how bright it is. Besides that, you have your navigation for Edge TX. You have your back button, your left and your right button, and your system button right here. Now you also have your scroll wheel on here to navigate, and it feels pretty good, similar to the one on the T-14. It's not metallic, but it is very sturdy. Now you can also press it in to select something on the menu, but that's the whole nature of this new radio. You don't really have to use this right here since you have a touch screen, and we'll see how we can navigate the menu with both our fingers and with the traditional buttons on here. Besides that, we have an introduction here of 2 new buttons on here. Now, some of the other manufacturers have a system and a telemetry button. It's cool to see that Jumper did put a dedicated button for that, and these things are backlit as well. Besides that, we do also have new 6 selectable buttons on here. This wasn't on this radio, but some of the more premium radios, like say the T-15, they did have those selectable buttons. Also, the T-20 also had it on there. From what Jumper has told me, this is going to be a replacement of the T-16. The T-16 was the smaller brother to the T-18. Now, I do think that's a pretty good idea because this does fill the void of the T-16 with a smaller form factor and all the features of that previous radio here. Now, these 6 switches here may not mean much for an FPV pilot, but if you're a wing pilot or a heli pilot, then this might mean a lot for you. Besides that, we have our trim switches on here, which is pretty cool. It's like a 5D button, left, right, up, or down, and you can also press it down and select as well. So really, really nice. Besides that, you have your same power button here, similar to the one on the T-14. I do like this design. It does have the Jumper logo in here. It's pretty big, and if you're wearing gloves, you can easily access it right here. Really nice. Now, the gimbals on here are pretty nice, very similar to their previous radios. These are Hall sensor gimbals. These are CNC and plastic gimbals, a combination of the two. And never once did I have an issue with this. This thing feels really, really good, really smooth actually. Now, as far as me, I'm a thumber on here. This radio here feels really good in the hand. I said it before on the T-14. This thing feels really good in the hand. It's the right size, and obviously other manufacturers have this same design language on here. But if you're a pincher on here, it feels really good as well. Now, besides that, you have your speaker on here, and I'm sure it's the same speaker on the T-14, and it did a pretty good job, very average. It wasn't too loud, it wasn't really low, it wasn't the clearest speaker either, but it was really good and it did the job. Besides that, you have 2 pods on here, and just like the T-14, there is a D10 in the center, which is good. Now, the next thing we have here are these switches right here. Now, this is a little bit of a change compared to the T-14. Now, in the T-14, usually your SA and your SB button are usually 2 position switches. In this case, they're all 3 position switches. That gives you more options, more customizability if you want to set this up into beta flight. Now, on the top here, you have your, I guess, your SE. I call it the arm switch. This one here is a latching switch, and the one on the other side is a momentary switch. Now, besides that, we have 2 plugs on here. These are user upgradable. If you want to add some antennas or switches on here, you have these holes already pre-drilled out for you. On the left here, you have a hole for your trainer port, and on the right, you have a USB-C port to charge the batteries in this. This one does have fast charging, 10 watts of charging, so you can charge your batteries pretty quickly. In the center here, you have a reboot or DFU button on here if you want to reset your actual system on this T-15. Now, on top here, you have your antenna. I like this design. This is a fully collapsible and tiltable antenna. You can twist it, change the orientation or polarization, and it can collapse really nice. Some guys like to use it as a handle. I wouldn't suggest that, but this thing packs pretty neatly and nicely. So in case you want to travel with this radio, you put your guards on here and you're pretty good if you don't want to carry your case with you. Now, in the back here, you also have a collapsible handle, which is really good. It is the handle, this is the official handle, but it can also be used as a stand, and you can have this radio tilted in case you want to do some testing on your drones. This thing is at an angle, so really good visibility. I like the fact that it also collapses. It is what it is. I have never had any issues with this. This is a very light radio. So let's weigh the T-15 and see how much it weighs. I have my scale here. Okay, so 535 grams, not too bad, and that's without the batteries. Let's see how much the T-14 weighs. And the T-14 weighs 502, so it's a little bit lighter than the T-15. And I'm sure that extra weight is due to these additional switches and obviously the larger display. Now, this is without the batteries in here. So it's gonna vary depending what battery you put in here, with the brand and the size battery that you put into the T-15. Now, below that, you have a full JR bay. in case you do want to have an external module, whether it be Crossfire or Express LRS. You can put it in here, really, really nice. And this thing should work pretty fine, guys. Now below the JR bay, you have the cooling fan for your TX module. In this case specifically, I have a Express LRS module on here, good for 1 watt. You can also get this in a 2.4 gigahertz or a 950 megahertz eLRS module. So this is pretty cool. 1 watt is extremely rare for an internal module, and this should be plenty to fly near or far. Now below that, you have the battery bay here. Now there's a sticker on here. So now let's open this up and take a look at it. Now this is the same from the other Raiders as well. This uses the 21700. It's a little bit larger battery than the 18650. And it's the exact same tray here. Well, let's take a look. Yep, it looks the same. Look, this can hold obviously the 21700s. I'm gonna use 18650s. Now, obviously we have a larger screen in here. So it might be in your best interest to put the larger batteries in here. Those are hard to find, and I don't have a set in my drawer here or my stash. So I'll just use this one for now, but I will expect a little bit less battery life compared to the larger 21700 batteries. As I said before, this bay here is pretty cool for this tray here if you intend to use this. But a lot of guys buy external or third-party batteries, and you're kind of limited by the space in here. So maybe in the next version, they'll make it a little bit larger. All right, batteries in here. Let's cover this up. All right, cool. All right, so let's power this up. The time is here. Now let's remove this screen protector. Normally I wouldn't remove it, but since I am recording here, I want you guys to have the best visibility of this new screen. All right.
Welcome to Edge TX.
All right, so this thing is a pretty vibrant screen. Has an Edge TX logo on here. And the first thing I noticed was the speaker on here. Now the speaker, as I said before, is very similar to the T-14. It is not the loudest, it's also not the clearest, but it is better than average. It is adequate. And here's your splash screen here. But you can also notice that we have the LED backlit buttons on here, the system telemetry, and our 6 buttons on here as well. So let's see here. Let's try the system button first, only because that wasn't available on the previous one. And we can use our scroll wheel here to navigate through it. Express LRS. Model locator, which is pretty cool, and a wizard loader. You can obviously navigate with your left and right buttons on here. All right, so this is what I'm used to. Since we're here, let's just try the touchscreen. This is my first time using the touchscreen on Edge TX. So let's see here. Pretty cool. I can manage the tools here. Model settings. It brings you to the model setup. Now, can you scroll with this, or you can't scroll? Oh, wow, you can scroll with this. All right, let's go to Express LRS. This is the main reason why we got this here. This is the Express LRS version. So let's select that with our finger and see what's on here. This is all internal module, obviously, guys. So you can change the packet rate, telemetry ratio, the typical stuff. Model match off, the power. We're gonna select that and see what it looks like. The fan threshold is 250. So I usually fly my stuff at 100 or so, but let's just change this to 250 so we can have the fan come on, see how loud the fan is. Dynamic is off, and let's go back. I can hear the fan now. You can hear it. It smells like an electronic. Let's put this back to a lower number, 100. That should turn it off. Back, Wi-Fi, backpack, and Bluetooth joystick, and the bind. All right, so this is on eLRS 3.3.2, which is fun. Cool. So I'll have to put the binding phrase on this and see if this thing actually connects to my drone. So let's go on my computer here. Wi-Fi connectivity, enable Wi-Fi. It's running, so let's see if I can connect to it. All right, so let's see here. We can take a look at the options here. And you can update the firmware. Obviously, I don't have the file, so we'll go to options here and just put the binding phrase right here. Let's see, I'll save it. Reboot. And I have a drone here. Let's see if I plug it in, if it's gonna bind automatically. Let's see here. All right. So I probably don't have the right binding phrase. Oh.
Telemetry connected. Telemetry lost.
I was too quick with it. It did connect. Let's see here.
Telemetry recovered.
All right, telemetry is recovered. We have a successful bind. It's still making a noise because I haven't assigned any of these switches yet. All right, so there it is. This thing works. So overall, what do I think about the T-15? Well, I think Jumper made some improvements on an already good design. This form factor here is pretty much the sweet spot between these larger radios and these smaller game style controllers. Now you also have a 1-watt module in here, which is more than enough for long range flying. And you have this nice color touchscreen display so you can navigate the menus with the screen or with these knobs and buttons. Now I do think that Jumper is headed in the right direction, and this is a good sign of things to come in the future. Now if you want a more affordable option than the T-15, I've done full reviews on the T-14 as well as the T-20. I'll leave this video linked right here so you can take a look at them. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.